I think we are ready to announce our first talk. Just a couple minutes ahead of schedule, but that's the way we like it. Okay. Can you check that timer, Ken? All right. Are you ready for our first talk? Or do you want more housekeeping? I have it if you want it. No, you know. The speaker's like, I need more housekeeping. Okay. I want to introduce Cory Brown. Cory Brown is a little bit of a local legend. Cory, close your ears for this part. No one wants to see what happens when you get all inflated about this. Cory, he calls himself opinionated but never certain. It's like classic developer description. I'm going to just read what Cory wrote in his bio. Enjoy this. I grew up in the front end and JavaScript, cut my teeth at National Geographic, led and instructed large teams at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, jumped into startup life, briefly thought it might be fun to work for Facebook. I was wrong. It's about as fun as using it. Sorry. I have a few more comments I'll just hold. All right. Came back to a startup which probably got acquired by JP Morgan, so now I somewhat work for the largest corporation in the world. Cory Brown's talk is titled AI in Context. Please welcome Cory Brown.
Thank you. My hot mic?
Yeah, you are.
All right. So quick correction, because I don't update stuff. I no longer work for the largest bank in the world. I work for a company called Vose. We're awesome. So just so you know. Okay. Thank you. Hopefully yes, we're still good. All right. Okay, you guys ready? Here we go. All right, Matin va hula dunya. Yeah, thank you. Is this gonna work? Maybe. It's not keeping up with my slides. Hold on. We're gonna go. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Yes. Okay. All right. There we go. Matin va hula dunya is misha. Actually, it's not keeping up. That's right. It's Cory horam. If you don't know what I'm doing, you'll get it in a minute here. Hami nam inla der bahar bok ek vos. Sorry, my thing isn't. Hami vruin raiv aunengalik. She kanen haun aun ahead of vruin nas luga na koget sahok mila dunya fertig antol vo 2022. We're getting there. Hashin akilach nachel dunya akam erson klechig ach shiv. Hamiadol vruin raiv en ju mu AI ach nimian berla erdehon. So thank you for letting me do that. If you've been watching me for a minute, I'm getting better, right? Okay, so I'm going to be talking about AI in context, and that was deliberately I tricked you guys, unless you read the description. I'm not going to be talking about context in AI. I'm talking about AI in context, and it's a historical context. So you may be wondering if this talk is for you. So I've prepared a little thing to let you know. I did this talk for the AI stands, for the AI Luddites, the skeptics, the utopianists, the scared, the ignorant, the hubris. I don't know why it's highlighting, and basically anyone else. So if you foolishly have just decided to not get up and walk out and see something else, in that case, I have a quick disclaimer, and that is I am definitely not an AI expert. Let's see if I can get this to not do that. There we go. Okay, this is going to get really weird unless I can get this caught up. Okay, here we go, sort of. Okay. So, yeah. Plato once said, to one it is given to create the things of art, and another to judge what measure of harm or profit they have for those that shall employ them. So I clearly am not the one to create the AI art, so to speak. But since I use it, I have a few thoughts on it. I think that maybe, perhaps, I can judge somewhat a measure of what harm or profit that they will employ, at least for me, and maybe by extension for you, if I'm fortunate. So, but that doesn't say we shouldn't listen to experts. Experts, of course, have spent a lot of time. They have, they know the ins and outs of things. They are the ones that are able to explain to us with real data-driven information, free of hyperbole and hype, what these tools are for and how they can be properly used. Keep on the right place here. All right, there we go. Well, or at least we hope that they can. Some of them anyway, maybe? I don't know. Like, who can you really trust, I guess? Okay, so speaking of hyperbole, hyperbole is fine. Hyperbole is great. It can really be truth informative, as long as everyone understands it's hyperbole. Once you start believing or other people start believing your own horse apples, soon you get some really weird results. So let's be cautious about hyperbole as we're talking about things. And speaking once again of hyperbole or hyperbola, thank you for laughing at that joke. There's a concept of a hype cycle you guys might be familiar with. A lot of new technologies tend to go through this. You are probably familiar with this. This was popularized by Gartner as a technology hype cycle. And for many of us, I think we might feel like that we are here. We're approaching peak hype of AI. In fact, if you've been around long enough, or if you're on LinkedIn a little bit or quite a bit, you might start to feel like we're actually here. I don't know. So we're somewhere on this, I'm sure. So many, let's see if I can get this. Okay. So many AI experts are cautioning right now that LLMs are kind of, and the transformers they're built on are kind of reaching their theoretical limits of their effectiveness. Further evidence in this particular technology are likely, or further advances in this particular technology are likely to be seen more on the margins than in the exponential growth that we saw for a few years there. That isn't to say, though, that AI isn't going to see huge and monumental advancements. Just not in the same way that we have seen them heretofore, at least according to some experts. Who knows? And if you haven't got it yet, the point of this talk here is to hopefully bring everyone, bring the extremes more to the center. So I'm talking a little bit about the hype and the anti-hype of AI, and we're going to try to approach this in a rational, analytical way, and see if we can't discover something about how AI will affect us in the future. Okie doke. Let's keep going. All right. So what is the future of AI? I don't know. And neither do you. And anyone who says otherwise is selling you something, to be honest. So be cautious about anyone who says that they know how AI is going to play out, what it's going to be useful for, the areas it's going to penetrate, how it's going to affect society or your job or your life. We really don't know yet. We got some time. I could end it there, but yeah, thank you. But it looks like I still have a little bit more time, so let's keep going. all transformational technology follows a pattern of progression. Oops, there we go. So just last week, a paper was published by, and I'm going to try to get these names right, Narayanan and Kapoor, both from Princeton University, that that really position AI as what they call a normal technology. And that doesn't say it's like boring or it isn't going to be impactful, but merely that it is a technology of a piece that we have seen before, that we can anticipate how it might proceed over time by comparing it to other technologies that have come before us. So what they say is that despite the obvious, oh, that's not this one, sorry. There we go. Despite the obvious differences between AI and past technologies, they are sufficiently similar that we should expect well-established patterns, such as diffusion theory, to apply to AI in the absence of specific evidence to the contrary. And currently, we actually do not have specific evidence to the contrary. So it's a fairly safe assumption right now that despite what really cool things AI can do, it isn't unique. We have not achieved the singularity, and so there are lessons that we can draw from the past that might help us inform the future. So this mentioned diffusion theory. So what is diffusion theory? Diffusion theory is this idea that innovations, it seeks to explain how innovations diffuse through society over time, at what rate and all that. So there are 5 things that affect how technology diffuses through societies. The first is the innovation itself, of course. The second is the adopters, the types of people that adopt. The third is communication channels for spreading this information. Fourth is time, usually measured in decades, actually. And the last is the social system and how it reinforces the adoption of these technologies. This theory actually comes with its own graph, much like the hype cycle. It graphs 2 different things. One, the advancement or the penetration, the diffusion of this technology through the market share. This doesn't have to be like the world population, but the market for whom this technology actually is relevant. For AI, it seems to be maybe worldwide. So maybe we're talking about 100% of the world. It follows kind of this S-curve, but it divides the growth of that curve into cohorts that follow a bit of a bell curve here. And the creator of this idea divides this into 5 groups. You have the innovators, the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. And all forms of technology, especially transformational technology, in the past, thus far, have seemed to follow this kind of pattern. There's another pattern that I'm sure I'm not the first to recognize this pattern, but I didn't find anyone else who has it, and I don't have a name for it. But this is the pattern that we also see through transformational technologies throughout history, and that is this. It begins with kind of this utopian optimism about what this technology can do for us and for society. And almost immediately you start to see this opposition to this utopian idea. Sometimes that opposition is even violent. As time progresses, you start to see a societal disruption using this technology. Old institutions are upended and new ones kind of try to take their place. You get eventually a societal realignment around this new technology that eventually becomes institutionalized around new institutions built to support it. This is the kind of thing that happens, that has happened for the printing press. It happened for electricity, the permeation of electricity through society, for the Industrial Revolution, and for the internet, as well as many, many other things. And I don't know if you noticed along this timeline, as we move through history, that timeline seems to have compressed more and more. And so it at least seems like as these new technologies come along, the scope of the amount of time it takes to move through these things and new institutions, the institutionalization of these technologies seems to take less and less time. AI, so far, seems to be following a similar progression. Early on, maybe when you guys were first kind of introduced to the idea of AI as a reality instead of some science fiction thing, we started to feel this utopian idea of, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. This is going to really affect society for the positive. Maybe you weren't one of those. Maybe you were one of those people that came on shortly after that, like, this is actually going to destroy society. I saw Terminator. I know what's going to happen. And you were maybe opposed to this, hopefully not violently, but there definitely has been some significant opposition to AI as well as the utopian ideas of them. We have even begun to start to see some societal disruption. Who has lost their job because, or let me put it this way, who has had a hard time finding a job recently? Who credits that somewhat, at least, to AI? Yeah, me too. And it's part of the reason why I wrote this talk, because I kind of felt like my troubles, like, is AI really like the problem here? Is this going to affect me? Should I find a different career? Maybe I should go back to school and become, I don't know, like, I don't know. I was going to say lawyer, but no. Farmer, maybe, I don't know. That would be better. HVAC, there we go. I like that one. So, this seems to be kind of a pace for everything. That being said, not all technologies with potential end up diffusing through society. I have just a few examples. For instance, maybe you've heard a few of these. These seem to have some possibility when they first came out. A lot of people were very excited about them, but they ultimately, at least so far, failed to diffuse completely through society for one reason or another. Will AI be one of these that fails to diffuse? I don't know, and you don't know either. We'll find out. I want to make sure we get to all the good stuff. I have a few stuff I'm going to have to skip over, I'm sure, but I'll make sure you get the best of what I can offer. Okay, so what can we expect? Yeah, where are we? Okay, go on. Well, there are a number of questions that people generally have that seem to come up. For instance, one of them, is AI going to replace my job? I don't know. Let's talk about it. How about maybe that you've heard this critique or this idea that those who don't adopt AI now will be replaced by those who will. Is that a thing? I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe this one I've been seeing a lot of lately. AI only produces slop. It doesn't actually produce anything useful, at least in terms of software development. This is a software development conference, so I'm talking about software development right now. So how accurate is that? Well, let's get into it real quick. There is a concept in AI called the bitter lesson, and the bitter lesson is this. And I'm quoting now from Rich Sutton, who kind of, he didn't coin this term, but he talked a bit about it. He said, the biggest lesson that we can read from 70 years of AI research, and can you believe that 70 years? That AI research has been going on for at least 70 years? It's wild to me. And only now are we starting to see like it come to fruition. It's crazy. That's a side topic, another topic for another time. The biggest lesson we can read from the 70 years of AI research is that general methods that leverage computation are ultimately the most effective, and by a large margin. What does that mean? What that means is that that anything that can be computed, computational power eventually surpasses methods that utilize human domain knowledge, largely because of generalizations of Moore's law, which, if you are familiar with that generalization, is the idea that predicts that continued exponentially falling costs per unit of computation. So as long as that curve holds, as long as the per unit cost of computation continues to fall exponentially, it will always be the case that that anything that can be done computationally will eventually be done vastly less expensively, vastly more efficiently via compute than via humans. And AI falls into that category. Narayanan and Kapoor cite this and have a response, a rebuttal. They say that this is a valuable observation about methods, of course, but it is often misinterpreted to encompass application development, which is a general term, but actually, in our case, also a specific term. Actual application development that we do, this is applicable here. definitely, AI can produce code heck a lot faster than any of you can. Probably a heck of a lot faster than all of us combined can. That is not the same thing as application development, is it? It's merely a part of that. Okay. In the context of AI-based product development, the bitter lesson has never even been close to true so far. So that is something to consider. I don't know what that means. Leave it to you. I'm not drawing any conclusions in this talk. I'm merely bringing information. So an interesting thing to note is that AI diffusion has been incredibly slow especially in safety critical areas. And that's a broad set of domain. It lags decades behind other places, other sets of domains. If you're building CRMs like we are, that's not necessarily the same thing. But if you're building, say models for hospitals that can predict when sepsis occurs, that can be a very big thing. In fact, that particular thing has been cited. Is that am I in the right place? Yeah. As a great example of this, a company called Epic had such a tool which performed incredibly well when modeled, and once brought into hospitals, it was missing 2/3 of sepsis cases in overwhelming physicians with false alerts. You can see very similar things kind of have happened well if you've been following driverless cars, same kinds of things. In the models, we can get really, really, really accurate. In the real world, that takes a lot longer because you're actually playing with human lives. And you cannot make mistakes with human lives. So it's progressing. It's just progressing slowly. So back to the diffusion of innovation model. You can see how this progresses, but it progresses at a different rate for different reasons and different domains. Okay, and the reality is that all technology, regardless of how much potential it has, can only move at the speed of human. And what do I mean by that? Sorry, didn't go on. What do I mean by the speed of human? Well, what that means is, yes, I have it. Society won't change any faster than society allows itself to change. Some change is generational. You can see that there may be ideas that are kind of fixed in a generation that you can't get past until that generation is no longer holding the reins, and the next one comes in. And that's just how humans work. It can be very frustrating. It can be very great. It just is what it is. Less consequential changes can be comparatively rapid. Massive societal changes must overcome massive pushback, whether or not that pushback is warranted. All disruptive technology has pushback, and society will not change until that pushback is overcome, unless it is overcome. So, the other thing that the authors of that article bring up is that there is some indication that perhaps the rate of adoption that we perceive to be getting smaller and smaller is not actually accelerating. Is adoption even happening as fast as it appears? AI seems to have kind of taken over the world very suddenly. At the same time, as we read earlier, research has been going on for 70 years. In August 2024, 40% of US adults use generative AI. That's quite a bit. But because most people used it infrequently, this only translated to 0.5% to 3.5% worth of work hours, and only an 1/8 to 7/8 percentage point increase in labor productivity. This is in 2024. So you can see AI seems to be everywhere, and it is kind of diffusing through the public consciousness fast, but its adoption rate and how it's affecting our everyday lives may not be quite as fast as it seems to be. The fact is that diffusion for almost everything occurs over decades, not years, and definitely not months, which gives us blessedly some time to adapt. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. We can skip that one, actually. That's not important. All right. So AI. One critique that is often brought up is that, especially lately, that I've seen lately, is that AI-generated code will lead to diminished skill sets and ability to write code ourselves. You guys heard this critique before. Maybe some of you feel like this is true. There have been a number of studies that suggest that this is true. Are you guys afraid that that the proliferation of AI is actually going to reduce the quality of code that gets out there? And does that matter? That's a question that's being hotly debated right now. Oh, I did it again. Here we go. So some articles on that. Yep. Back to Plato. I think there's merit to that argument. And Plato made a very similar argument. He said, if men learn writing, it will implant forgetfulness in their souls. They will cease to exercise memory because they rely on that which is written, calling things to remembrance no longer from within themselves, but by means of external marks. He wasn't joking. He wasn't trolling. He was serious. The question is, was he right? And interestingly, yes, he was absolutely right. For instance, me. If it's not on the, I tell my kids all the time, if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening because I'm not remembering something. I have to go back to the calendar. So absolutely, my memory is poorer because of writing than it otherwise would be. So I guess we should just get rid of writing because obviously memory is actually the most important thing in all the world, right? No, obviously not. Plato was right, he was just also wrong. And we can imagine something very similar with AI. Will AI end up creating code that is harder to read, it's less good, all kinds of problems with it? Maybe even likely. But is that the most important thing? I don't know. This is kind of the lesson of this talk. I don't know. Nobody knows. It very well may be that because of its cheapness to produce, its quality is not relevant. And so we can just reproduce things all the time. Maybe that's actually not going to be a quality of it. Maybe this will be a big problem and we'll have to find ways around that. Maybe there'll be other ways to mitigate this. I don't know. The critique is right. Perhaps the conclusion is wrong. Okay. I've got just a few minutes before I want to jump over to kind of my closing remarks here. But I want to talk a little bit briefly about some trends that have been happening in corporate world where CEOs are wanting to force the issue. They get this idea that AI definitely improves our productivity and people aren't adopting AI as fast as I should, and perhaps they're not doing that because they feel like it's threatening their jobs, but that's not really important to me because that was actually not very nice. But however, it's important for us to be as competitive as we can in the marketplace, so we need to force the issue and compel people to use AI so that we can be more competitive. This is something that's happened. Recently, the Coinbase CEO got into the news for firing people who didn't adopt AI immediately. Shopify CEO made some headlines with a leaked memo about adopting AI. I'd argue that this is probably not the best way to go about things. For one, your conclusions as to why people aren't adopting AI may not be sound. For instance, maybe it's actually not making them productive. There was a study that came out recently that suggested that developers thought that AI made them 20% more effective, but when measured, it makes them 19% less effective, less efficient. I don't know if that's accurate. There's critiques to that too, but there is that as well. But maybe what they are missing is these ideas that diffusion of new technologies never comes by way of mandates. The best mandates, at best, mandates allow individuals to try something sooner than they otherwise would have, but usually when you force issues, and unanticipated consequences can engender resentment. Revolt within the new technologies are forced upon individuals before they're ready to receive it. In other words, oh, wow. Gosh, I'm sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, now I got to jump to the end here. But so AI radically lowers the barrier of entry for sure, but it does not really lower the barrier to seniority in a lot of ways. So what an experienced software engineer can do versus what a novice can do certainly changes with AI. But we are forgetting that AI is also available to the software engineer, the experienced software engineer, and so. That kind of actually widens the gap generally between the novice and the experienced engineer. Coincidentally, this is very much the same Venn diagram as what a CEO thinks he can do with AI versus what he actually can do. And the thing we should keep in mind is that the universe of things that can be done versus what any software engineer can do with AI is still rather large. So don't fret, is my point here. I've often told people that jobs as software engineers to automate themselves out of a job into a new job. And that is, there's always more work to be done. So I want to close off with this idea from none other than Edgar Dijkstra. And I'm going to have to bring over my slides to this because this is pretty great. I love it. And that is this. Boop. OK. Real fast. I got 2.5 minutes. Since the early days of automatic computing, we have, this is just a wall of text. I'm sorry, I'm going to read it. Here we go. Since the early days of automatic computing, we have had people that have felt it is a shortcoming that programming required the care and accuracy that is characteristic for use of any formal symbolism. Some still seem to equate the ease of programming with the ease of making undetected mistakes. The virtue of formal text is that their manipulations, in order to be legitimate, need to satisfy only a few simple rules. They are, when you come to think of it, an amazingly effective tool for ruling out all sorts of nonsense that, when we use our native tongues, are almost impossible to avoid. Instead of regarding the obligation to use formal symbols as a burden, we should regard the convenience of using them as a privilege. Thanks to them, school children can learn to do what in early days only geniuses could. When all is said and told, the naturalness with which we use our native tongues boils down to the ease with which we can use them for making statements that the nonsense of which is not obvious. I suspect that machines can be programmed in our native tongues, be it Dutch, English, American, French, German, or Swahili, are, as damn difficult to make as they would be to use. This is, I think, a critical thing to remember. Finally, we know in the meantime that the choice of an interface is not just a division of a fixed amount of labor, because the work involved in cooperating and communicating across interfaces has to be added. We know in the meantime, from sobering experience, I may add, that a change of interface can easily increase both sides of the fence, the amount of work to be done, even drastically so. Hence the increase in preference for what we now call narrow interfaces. Therefore, although changing to communication between machine and man conducted in the latter's native tongue would greatly increase the machine's burden, we have to challenge the assumption that this would simplify man's life. How much work goes into setting up AI to perform? Oh, this is me. How much work goes into setting up AI to perform accurately is more or less work than writing code, especially with decent and narrow code completion. The point is, guys, we are enamored, I think, with the idea of natural language programming. It sounds really great. It could be really great. This is not the first time we have thought about it. It has been thought long and hard by people that perhaps natural language code generation, perhaps, will make our lives more difficult than less difficult. I don't know what that means. I don't know. We'll find out. For AI, time will tell. I'm not a skeptic. I am also not a true believer. I am kind of sitting on the sidelines, adopting as I find use, and enjoying the ride as it goes. I hope you guys will do the same. Tapa leva charshin. Thank you.